Okay, thanks for clicking there. We are going to have a conversation today with Steve Schuck, whom I think I've known Steve for decades. I'm getting old, Steve. Uh, Steve is a real estate developer based in Colorado Springs, which you might recognize behind him there with those beautiful mountains. He is a longtime philanthropist as well himself individually, and he's got his own foundation based out of Colorado Springs as well. His experience in philanthropy includes a lot of support of school choice efforts, increasing options for parents in the education area, and he has had a long time interest as well in the philanthropic space with the issue of donor intent, which we will talk a little bit about with him today. His experience in philanthropy also includes some time on the board of the Daniels Fund, which we at the Giving Review have covered recently with a piece by Bill Shambra, to which, Steve, there'll be a link in the introductory materials. So just in general, Steve, why do you think so few foundations overall have been able to remain faithful to their donor intent, or if you think that? Yeah.
Well, not to put too fine a point on, well, firstly, Mike, thanks for doing this. Appreciate the opportunity. And again, not to put too fine a point on it, but we do not consider ourselves philanthropists as much as activists.
Okay.
We we're not passive donors. We engage and we try and drive the agenda. To answer your question specifically, I think that there may be a problem in the question itself because I think the biggest problem we face is donors failing to properly define their intent.
Yeah.
They do it in broad terms and generalities and platitudes, but not with any specificity. Um, and um, so I think the challenge is not so much people not following the intent as it is failing to define the intent in the clearest and most actionable terms, with intentionality, with specificity, so that the successors to the donor understand exactly what the donor wanted to accomplish. In using platitudes and generalities like, I want to help the poor, I want to help the disadvantaged, those in need, is an absolute guarantee for mischief. It
Yeah.
guarantees that the lack of specific definition of what the donor is trying to accomplish allows his or her or their successors to interpret it any way they want.
Hmm.
And, and so there is no, absent, again, the specificity of donor intent, there is no real donor intent. And it becomes a jump ball, just up for grabs.
Hmm.
So my goal is to encourage, convince donors, especially conservative donors, to um, define in the clearest of terms what their objectives are. Let me give you a quick example that really makes the point more clearly than I can through conversation. When I was on the Daniels board, we supported both the Denver Rescue Mission, which is a traditional, what I call enabler. They house, feed, medicate, clothe substance abusers without any conditions. We also supported one of your favorite causes, Step 13, now called Step Denver, um, which is just the opposite. We didn't support men. We did only men, but we didn't support men unless they made a commitment to clean up, to get sober, to get clean, and to rejoin productive society. And then we gave them all the tools and support needed to do so. Well, when I was on the Daniels board, I challenged my board members to discuss whether we favored one approach to sobriety or one approach, which was to pursue sobriety, or the other approach, which is simply to enable. So one is increasing the, the likelihood that substance abuse will continue, and the other is trying to terminate and end the use of drugs and alcohol. Uh, and, um, and Bill Daniels told us he wanted to support those addressing substance abuse, but he didn't tell us whether he favored the Denver Rescue Mission approach or the Step 13 approach. And so I said to our board members, is it 50-50, 90-10, 10-90? I know where I am, but I'm only one out of whatever it was, 10 or 12 votes. And we need to wrestle with this. And they didn't want to do it. They refused to do it. So not only did Bill not tell us, the subsequent board was more interested in, I don't know, making everybody feel good. Didn't define, so there was no definition of what we were trying to accomplish. Again, 50-50 would be fine, but one ought to come to that conclusion after consideration, deliberation, and clear definition. I would be, I wouldn't vote for it necessarily, but I would have been comfortable if, in fact, the board had said, we've decided we're going to do both.
Yeah.
But do it consciously, not by default.
Mm-hmm.
And so we essentially allowed ourselves to respond to whoever produced the best grant request, et cetera, et cetera. So we made the wrong decision for the wrong reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm sort of a missionary right now to try and get donors to answer the tough questions that if they don't answer, somebody else will do for them. And they're most likely to not be happy with what decision is made.
Mm-hmm. The mischief that you reference that can be done if there's only an abstract donor intent or the default position uh, seems to always skew a little left, or am I being too cynical or too conservative there? Does your advice have more urgency for a conservative? Uh,
So, so
it's a
you
softball.
know better than I learned a bunch of this stuff from you guys at Bradley. Um, so yes, of course it's going to go left, um, and 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 there's a reason for that. There's an explanation for that. And Bill Shambra is the national spokesperson for the explanation. It's the professionalization of foundations and management of foundations. So those who go into the go into the philanthropic world are naturally, by inclination, going to be much more progressive, if you will. They're not entrepreneurs, they're not necessarily champions of the marketplace and marketplace dynamics and all that kind of stuff. And so the natural inclination is to go left. I'm about to address a group in a month or so that's made up of about a third, a third, a third, left, right, and center. And I will make the exact same point and say, I got into this because I'm a conservative, I'm a libertarian, I'm a marketplace champion, and I see the natural forces and gravity taking management of and leadership of foundations to the left. And that's what got me involved. But if I was on the left, I would argue for the same kind of intentionality and say, if that's what you want, be specific about it. Um, the burden is not going to be as great for those on the left as those on the right for the reasons I just explained.
Yeah.
Um, People like to give money away. Most of our guys, including me, enjoy much to much greater degree enjoy making it than
Yeah.
giving it away.
Yeah. Yeah.
And compare that to people. So we're generally on the right, and generally on the left are people who like to give it away.
Yeah.
I never enjoyed, and I still do not enjoy giving it away personally as much as I did making it.
Now, so how did the Daniels Fund story end? How did Daniels handle this issue in general? And then how are you, Steve Schuck, with is it's the Schuck Foundation? What are you doing personally to be specific about your donor intent? Are we doing making videos saying we won't hire credentialed elitists, or what is
Right.
to be done?
So a couple of thanks for the question, Mike. Several things. Firstly, as to Daniels, because Bill wasn't, so Bill was great. I think he probably did a better job, maybe with the exception of, and there are very few exceptions like Bradley, but what he did was identify the giving areas, but he never identified what his objectives were. Using the example I did a moment ago about substance abuse. He never said, I want the focus to be on men regaining sobriety. He just said, address the issue of substance abuse. And of course, the objectives were left unsaid, therefore, subject to being interpreted by whoever was in charge at the time. So that left a lot of opportunity and opening on the Daniels Fund board for, again, individual interpretation. And there was an attempted coup takeover, thanks to a very, very strong, principled group of board members. It was rejected, but it took years and years, millions and millions of dollars. The opportunity cost, what it cost us to address that problem and resolve it, distracted us from what we should have been focusing on. So the cost of salvaging and saving Daniels was great, but ultimately it got done. So
Mhm.
um, so that seared a lesson in my mind that I said when it's my turn, I'm going to be a lot more prescriptive in what I expect from the successors to my late wife's and my foundation.
Mhm.
And so what I've done is defined what I want. Was interviewed for a dozen, 2 dozen hours by professional videographers and very highly qualified people. They distilled it down, and I have 14 3-minute, 4-minute vignettes deal with individual approaches so that there can be minimal doubt about what Joyce and I would want to see accomplished. And interestingly, Mike, one of the most important and impactful vignettes is titled Thou Shalt Not. So we very precise and again specific about what we do not want our future board members and management team to do, as well as what we do want them to do. I want to be very clear about this. It isn't perfect. It's just the best I've seen so far. And I hope that somebody else takes a look at those 14 and figures out how to do an even better job. And that becomes a better model than what we did. But to my knowledge, we've probably gone as far as almost anybody has in being definitive. And so what I've done is gone to a bunch of my peers and said to them, please look at these videos. I'm not asking you to support what I support. I am asking you to be as specific and prescriptive in your own videos as I was in mine. Whether you subscribe to my agenda or not is not the point. So basically, donor intent has been, I mean, you know better than I do, all the overwhelming majority of foundations that were created by capitalists and free enterprisers that are now the enemy of the very system that allowed that wealth to be accumulated. And the blame, it's great to be able to do it with retrospect, but the blame really falls on them because they didn't tell their successors what to do and what not to do.